Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Short Fuse podcast. I'm Duncan Roberts, and I'm here with Ollie. Say hi, Ollie.
Hi.
What are we talking about today, Ollie? What's the episode all about?
The news.
The news. It's a news episode, so we're going to choose some of the top news stories from our tech tracker, some things that we're just personally interested in, talk about them. There might be a few long and shorts in there, but it's not the basis of the episode. Ollie, first bit of news. What's grabbed your attention this week?
Well, quick aside, something for our production team to do, I think, would be to have some news jingles right at the start. You know, like at the start of the BBC, you know.
Right.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, right. So give me a few seconds of silence. I'll pop a news jingle in. All good. How was that? Yeah. How was that, Ollie?
What? I wouldn't know. Would I?
Go on.
All this happens to little people, i.e., Duncan, who is shorter than me, so that's fine. Handles all of that. I just turn up.
All right, let's go. What's your first news story?
Should we talk about Meta, Duncan?
Meta.
Because we've already fallen out about this immediately.
Well, we started having a discussion about it, and then we realised, hang on, we're just doing the podcast without recording.
So the news is, Duncan, and for our audience, who of course have probably already been over our website and read the little piece I wrote on Meta's reversal, pulling out of the metaverse, bless it. Duncan took umbrage with that.
I didn't take. Well, hang on. You can't just put words in my mouth, old boy.
I can force whatever narrative I want.
So you keep going. So Meta's turning off Horizon Worlds and moving some investment away from virtual reality.
Yeah, it was an interesting week. And the reason we put that piece out is because we both hate LinkedIn. And particularly the content engine that is LinkedIn. And over the last week, it's just been an endless stream of posts of just like, oh, Meta's pulling out the metaverse, right? And it was an interesting period because they did sort of, didn't they? They said, okay, we're moving out of VR specifically.
They're not moving out of VR. So there's a lot of different headlines being posted about this, but the situation is actually detailed. I was going to say nuanced there, just say nuanced all the time.
Yeah, nuanced. Interesting.
It's interesting nuance. But it's not as simple as saying we're pulling out of the metaverse, or we're pulling out of VR, or we're turning off. I just said it myself. We're turning off Horizon Worlds. They're not turning off Horizon Worlds. They're not pulling out of VR, and they're not pulling out of. I mean, probably that's the most true statement, is that they're pulling out of the metaverse. But Horizon Worlds isn't going anywhere for now, and it's still going to be available on mobile. They're just redistributing that investment into other places.
So this is where your umbrage is misdirected, because really all of this confusion is Meta's fault, isn't it? Because they did say they have released statements. They were just like, screw it, we're out of this bad boy. And then within like an hour, they've come back on and be like, I didn't say that. No, you'll still be able to access it.
This is the thing, right? So this is the thing that they have this thing called Horizon Worlds, and it is like operating system level deep, baked into their Quest headsets. So when you turn on your Quest headset, you don't see like a list of games that you can play, which you can do. You have to get to it. You don't see like anything else other than this straight away, like Horizon Worlds, go to this world, do this, do that, meet with your friends in Horizon Worlds. And they even called the operating system Horizon OS. So they baked it purely, like so deeply into their operating system that it became part of like what the product was. And then they say, oh, do you know what? We're going to just make Horizon Worlds mobile only, because that's where we're seeing the most usage of it. Nobody wants it in VR. And then a few people went, hang on a minute, I actually quite like Horizon Worlds in VR. And then the CTO, Boz, did an Instagram saying, do you know what? We'll leave it available in VR as a standalone app, which I think is totally fine. Like, have it as a choice for people. Don't force it down their throats. That's been the whole problem with Meta's metaverse strategy all along, is like trying to force stuff that people don't want. And now they just look confused and a bit silly, and people are saying, oh, Meta doesn't do VR anymore. But actually, they're still planning on releasing mixed reality and virtual reality headsets down the line. Horizon Worlds is still available. They're pumping a lot of that 80 billion into smart glasses, which are doing well. But again, communication strategy just very poorly thought out, I would argue.
It's been that way for a little while, hasn't it? I mean, I think naming your company after the metaverse and then being like, "Oh, actually, we're now an AI company."
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just a bit embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wild. But they're not the only ones, because Apple released a couple of statements, didn't they, with their results, which is that we don't think the Vision Pro is going to make us that much money. And actually, I would use the phrase smart glasses. I think they use the phrase, is it real VR or something like that? You know, basically
so
like the Ray-Ban, like these. They'll look like these is the point, and you just wear them like normal glasses. We did a podcast on this exact thing, didn't we? Where actually, and this is why in the blog we're kind of we argue it's I say we, because as we know, our editorial committee, Duncan, took umbrage with it. I just like saying the word umbrage. But in that we argued the big clunky headsets, the idea that you would be sitting in your virtual office with one of those hanging off the end of your face for hours on end, just seemed
it's bonkers,
odd for most people.
Yeah,
and you will quite happily don a headset to do a variety of activities,
sure.
But they're leisure activities, and most people wouldn't. I think was that the friction of going out and spending hundreds of dollars on one of these things, and then uncomfortably and sweatily, no doubt, wearing one whilst attending a boardroom meeting and being served loads of ads, which was what their entire premise was based on, just hasn't played out. And Apple are feeling the same way. It seems.
I mean, the Vision Pro was always a stopgap product that is not meant to be mass market. I mean, it's $3,500 for goodness sakes. It's not meant to be completely mass market like the iPhone, but it's a stopgap between those headsets that they're able to do and Vision OS, which is a stopgap towards having that built into augmented reality glasses, i.e. glasses that you can see the real world in but have a digital overlay on them, which is what everybody is pursuing. I still believe that even that is a step too far as the only next computing paradigm that anybody needs over and above mobile phones, because I think that it has other friction points and other problems. But I just that people are trying to make the next big thing and forcing things down their throat, and Meta have realized that actually that didn't work, and now they're looking really confused. And it's indicative of a lot of other stuff that they're doing. Even in the AI work that they're doing, they got rid of, Jan LeCun left, and they got in the new young chap to lead up their superintelligence thing. And there's a lot of division and strife in that. They've just apparently delayed a new AI model because the performance wasn't good enough. Their superintelligence labs apparently have a 1 to 50 manager to employee ratio. It's just they seem to be just flailing around trying to do stuff. I even read an article the other day about an influencer who was giving his reaction to them saying, "We'll pay you $3,000 a month to publish the content that you put on TikTok on Facebook, not Instagram, Facebook." And this guy was like, $3,000 not worth it. There's nobody there.
Right.
And now they've bought Moltbook, which arguably, or they've acqui-hired Moltbook people, which is arguably like, why would you do that? Because you could just build that in like a few days, vibe coding it. Like, why did you need to acquire that? And it just feels like desperation at this point.
This would be a good time to introduce our latest research product, Duncan.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not think?
Yeah,
the Carrey System,
yeah.
Where our first, I'm now googling. I can't remember what it stands for because it took ages to find an acronym that fit.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey, but I thought it was a good idea, and I'm sticking to it. But it's effectively a system that rates acquisitions based on Jim Carrey films, and Moltbook received the rating of The Mask because digging under the cover, there's just nothing there at all. Really. It's I think in one of our previous podcasts you said, well, what they've really done is just hired a guy, and that seems to be the case because there's next to nothing underneath. We thought there's another person who vibe coded something this week, Duncan, and took it down pretty quickly, and we could talk about that too.
Go for it.
Well, Karpathy. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Am I saying that correctly?
Karpathy.
Yeah. Well, Carpers, if you're listening, which you definitely are, call in. After the fact,
He's
this isn't
very well
recorded live.
thought of, and
He's very good.
yeah,
Well, I thought the analysis was quite good, to
yeah.
be honest. I thought it was an excellent word. We have done similar things ourselves, have we not, Duncan?
Mm-hmm.
Although we didn't vibe code those. We took months and months and
Yeah.
months diligently researching what would happen in the world of work. What I find interesting about it, so to give people the story, if you haven't seen it, he vibe coded an assessment of, I think, about 300 jobs and how much of those could be handled by AI, and then jump to a few conclusions over what it meant for the future of work. Right, it's 10 a penny now, and again, we've done our few. I would argue ours is pretty detailed and academically rigorous,
Robust,
indeed. That got a ton of criticism. People panicked, which tends to be what people do these days when they hear about AI taking over jobs. And within a couple of hours, he took it down, deleted it, and pretended it didn't happen. What's interesting about that is that has happened twice now. So Citrini Research did their fan fiction, as it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Karpathy did his assessment. Both got loads of criticism. We're all over the internet for absolutely ages. Got loads of criticism or scrutiny, and both said more or less the same thing, which was, I only did it for fun.
Right.
So don't come at me, bro. I only did it for fun. I'm going to delete it now. Which I think says an interesting thing about where we are as a society,
Mm-hmm.
that you can't have an opinion. You can't. I thought it was, like I say, interesting. You don't have to agree with all of it if you don't want to. But yeah, ended up taking it down because he received so much criticism.
I think it's I think it depends on who you are, right? Like, so if you're an ex OpenAI engineer who's got a kind of a vested interest or got a following of people that will take on board what you say and then try and make that happen, or if it's indicative, if people think it's indicative of what the companies that you have or will work for in the future are trying to achieve, then people will get worried. And it's the same with the Citrini research, is that, oh, you're a market, you're supposed to analyze the markets. Is this what actually is going to happen? And with Karpathy, it's like, is this what AI companies are trying to do? That's where the panic comes from. So I think it's almost like, is this a secret insight into what's actually going on? And I think people are so concerned, or there's just this unease around what's actually happening and what's going on, that people will just jump onto anything quite quickly.
Yeah, and there's been a few studies in the media. So I think the Wall Street Journal led with a lot of analysis that everyone in the US has basically just had enough of AI companies being like, oh, you're all screws and we're going to proceed anyway with what we're doing. So maybe that is a big part of it, which is like, well, if anyone knew, it would be this guy, and it's a bit of a doom and gloom story. But I think there's this other strand, and we talk about it a lot, which is actually for OpenAI to be successful, it does actually need to achieve a lot of those arbitrage models. So effectively, developers not developing AI doing it. Otherwise, the maths just doesn't add up.
Right. So, and OpenAI recently has just said, we're going to stop focusing on so many things and just focus on enterprise more, because Claude is eating their breakfast, and a lot of enterprises are going, well, Claude's actually really good. So yeah, they're not pivoting as such, but they're refocusing their efforts on B2B and enterprise rather than their consumer products or their various different AI browsers and things like that. Yeah,
and we've had that conversation before in previous ones. Consumer always felt like you were going to get. I mean, I think both of us pay for a form of premium AI because of our job. So I guess we kind of set enterprise, although it's personal, using a consumer product. The idea that most consumers would spend quite a significant amount of money to use AI always felt fanciful to me. And actually, we've argued the big money would come in if they get a cut of consumer consumption, like Google does. But it's always going to be the enterprise for the bulk, surely.
I agree. I think it would be foolish to say that the consumer side isn't going to happen, but it's just a lot harder, and it needs a lot more diffusion into the consumer world before it can start making the types of money that people have kind of committed to making for their investment.
Yeah, and what you find is that once something has been given for free, it's very difficult to start charging money to a mass
Sure,
market, which I guess
sure.
is the point. So unless you're kind of squeezing revenue out of free usage some other way, i.e., like, hey, we get 10% of any purchases that come from this AI agent, or we serve ads, which sounds catastrophic for OpenAI. And I mean, you've got to give Anthropic their due for immediately jumping on that.
Yeah. Oh, hey, it's Super Bowl time. We'll do an advert about adverts.
Do you know, I have to say, I mean, we're critical of OpenAI quite, not necessarily OpenAI, but I guess their vision for how they can achieve what they want to achieve. And because they're the first mover, so they're the bellwether. You have to say, Anthropic as a fast follower is nailing it. You know, they are just winning every field of conflict they have with OpenAI.
Yeah,
time
I think
and time
that it's difficult to not sound like a fanboy, to be honest, and I do think that Anthropic and Claude suffer from a lot of the broad AI issues, but their approach personally, it wins me over a lot more than some of the other companies. And whether I'm being, sucked in hook, line, and sinker, I don't know, but it is working at the moment. But like on Anthropic kind of suffering from the same issues, let's talk about a video that was released this morning, UK time, probably last night, US time, which is Bernie Sanders having a chat with Claude about privacy and elections and moratoriums on data center building. And one of the things that makes me laugh about this is, it's not a laughing matter. However, a lot of what he's kind of saying, I'm like, yeah, okay, right, makes sense. That is a concern. This is a concern. But what I think undermines it, with me at least, is that it follows a trend of Bernie Sanders saying something and the AI model going, do you know what, you're right. And actually, here's the detail on this. And then it making some sort of kind of statement that is counter to what the person has asked. Then the person saying, well, actually this. And then the AI bot going, yeah, actually, do you know what? You're right. Here's some more detail. So whereas I don't disagree necessarily with any of the points, the way in which it's been done highlights an issue with how AI is sycophantic to the point where it will start to go off on like a path, and then you can bring it back and it'll go, oh, no, you're right. It's interesting to watch.
I found it difficult to watch. So you sent it to me this morning, and I watched it, and I found it difficult for the exact reason you've described. Right, so the sycophancy that you can strong arm AI into saying anything you want. Yeah. Realistically speaking, you just go, I disagree with you. It's like, oh, well, you're smarter than me. So you clever boy, well done. But also, these are 10 a penny now. Sometimes they're really funny things, like, oh, I asked it whether or not I had to go to a car wash with my car, and it said walk because it's quicker, or something just pointless things that tend to go viral. And I just think AI saying these things is no more or less remarkable than someone Googling them and saying, hey, here's what I found out.
Right.
Because that's all that's happening in front of you.
Yeah.
There are myriad arguments on the internet. This is trained from those myriad arguments. So going to Claude, like, I think this, and it being like, well, and really what it's saying is like, well, 70% of what I've churned through disagrees or says this. Oh, well, I disagree with you. Okay, well, the other 30% are on your side, in fact.
Yeah.
So who cares? It's not Claude being like, oh, I'm using this, like in the book series Scythe, the Thunderhead. I'm using all of the power. It's just guessing.
But it's like, I guess then the point is like, who's the video for? Is it for people like us who have opinions and have thoughts on how AI works, and it's sycophancying it, backing up those arguments, and it's saying one thing to one person, another to another? Or is it for a broader population of non-tech people who need to hear this to get behind what Bernie's saying? Interesting point.
It's just very clever political positioning, isn't it?
Sure.
I think so. And we're I don't know if anyone can tell from our accents, but we're not American. So I don't claim to know much about the American political system, but this is going around across the globe where, let's say, a lot of incumbent political parties are pro-AI. Because, hey, this is a good opportunity for growth. This is good, whatever it is in the early days. So they're all necessarily championing, like, we want to become the destination for AI. We want to woo people like Musk and so to invest in our countries, because that's obviously a good thing. And a natural position for the opposition to take is like, well, this is probably bad, actually. And right now, as we mentioned, like in things like the Wall Street Journal, a lot of the mainstream media is saying, well, the public actually don't like this anymore because there's a lot of talk about job losses. It's doing weird stuff. LinkedIn, which is the only social media we have, but I suspect it's all over other social media, is just filled with, I asked it to do this thing and it told me to die, or it misdiagnosed me, or I've walked to the car wash and I look like a fool without my car, or whatever it is. So it's like, you know, if you were to do anything, doing a thing where you're quizzing a sycophantic bot that will play devil's advocate over everything, and getting it to say like, "Oh yeah, I am actually evil." You're absolutely right. Yeah, you've nailed it.
There was a meme. There was a meme straight away. It was like Bernie Sanders saying, "Pretend to be a scary robot," and then Claude saying, "I'm a scary robot," and then Bernie Sanders going,
right.
It's like,
it is not, you know, maybe his reactions are authentic. I found it difficult to watch. And again, because there are so many of these and we see so many, it feels really inauthentic. Like you're asking questions, you know exactly what it's going to do.
Right.
I find it inconceivable that you didn't test asking it those questions beforehand
and
it
didn't say something like, well, no, we shouldn't absolutely do that. But then again, like there is a point that he's played a blinder in a way, right? Because if the counter to that video is AI is just repeating back what you want to say from the AI companies, right? If they say, no, it's just repeating back what you want to say, then it kind of undermines their product and says, well, it's not super intelligent because it's just repeating back training data or it's being sycophantic. If they then say, well, no, it's right, then what it's saying is have a moratorium on data centers and there's a problem with privacy. So he's kind of snookered them in that respect. So in that case, it's quite a clever way of doing things.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. That is, yeah. Nice one, Duncan.
Sorry.
Well, sure the audience will love that.
So it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is on it the more it comes out.
Yeah, I found it awkward to watch. But I've seen so many of them, and I suspect you have because of the industry and the nature of our work. Maybe that'll be the first time people see it, and I just
think people will probably ignore it, and things will just keep going on as they go. So whereas I feel like there is a little bit of an opportunity for kind of snookering AI companies in response, either they'll just say, you know, well, it's just, you know, you didn't use the right model, or it's just, or whatever, or they just ignore it. You know.
Yeah. So, I've been using this is a bit of an aside. I've been using Gemini. So no one else will know this, but Duncan certainly will, and he may even have some PTSD. I regularly go through bounce where I decide I want to buy a new car, and I need and I send Duncan cars and be like, oh, should I get this one? And they're often like, you know, it's a Porsche or a Range Rover Sport or something like that. And I've been doing this for 4 years, and I have the exact same car I started off with. I've made no progress whatsoever. I've been doing that to Gemini, Duncan, so it is serving a purpose.
Oh, so you're taking it off my back?
Yeah. It's like, a Range Rover Velar.
Should get a car.
It's perfect.
Oh, yeah, you should do that.
It does.
But then again, that's what I said. I always used to buy that. Yeah, go for it. Because I can't.
Yeah, but I'm not looking to buy a new car. I just want to have a dream, Duncan.
Yeah, you actually also want people just to talk you out of it more than talk you into it.
Oh, Gemini doesn't do that. And you've never taught me about getting a car. You're just like, oh, you would immediately be cooler to everyone if you drove around in that.
I'm not sure.
That's not a midlife crisis car at all, Ollie. Yeah, you're more sycophantic than Gemini, actually, I think.
All right. Last news story, I think, for now. Let's talk about Nvidia and their DLSS5 promotion that they showed, which is so DLSS. I can't remember what DLSS stands for. Dynamic. Oh, anyway, look it up.
I'll look it up.
Look it up. It is a way for computers to process and show graphics in games on lower power graphics cards at higher resolutions. It essentially renders the game at a lower resolution and then upscales it using AI. So the computer finds it easier to run and makes the game look better. What's it stand for, Ollie?
I'm not going to tell you. Don't ruin it. I always say, you ruined it. You ruined it.
Dynamic lighting and super sampling or something like that.
No,
No.
not even close, buddy.
Oh, mate.
Not even close. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting point, Duncan, because when I think about deep learning super sampling or DLSS,
deep learning super sampling.
Imagine not knowing that. Imagine not knowing that.
Well, it's AI, right? It's AI. Super sampling is taking a lower resolution image and making it higher resolution. But DLSS5 is taking people's faces in games and making them look like AI faces, or more photorealistic, as they would say. And there's been a very, very big pushback about this from gamers who think it's AI slopping their games and taking away artistic integrity from the developers. What do you reckon, Ollie?
Well, I think it does look prettier. I'll give you that. And we've talked on previous podcasts. I think we have one on games. We've done so many now, I forget.
Yeah.
Where both of us are chasing the glory days of Skyrim, which we grew up with, and stuff like that. And I think one of them, they used Oblivion, right?
It's Starfield and Oblivion. Yeah.
And it does look great. Like it does look great. I get, however, the artistic integrity bit. So most of the backlash has been, well, the original image can't have had that detail. So you're making it up and you're generating it over the top, which damages the experience as originally designed, which I understand. We've talked about this before, I think off air. I'm a graphics monkey, however, and there are some games that I really enjoy, like Fallout 3, and I put them on. It's like, oh, it's so ugly compared to what I'm used to. I can't conceive of playing this anymore. So in that case, I'm personally all for it. But I do understand the criticism, and that their concern is that it just becomes a festival of slop as a result over games that have great provenance. Otherwise.
Right. I think that part of the issue is they showed it on existing games that are very popular, and that the people are like, well, what have you done to my existing game? Like there was a video from Digital Foundry where people said, I think this looks really great, and people were like giving them death threats and all sorts of stuff, and it's absolutely dreadful. I can see how most people who are not like serious gamers or have serious views on AI would go, well, it looks better, so therefore it's a good thing. I can also see the artistic integrity thing, although I would say that the developers would have agreed to have that done to their games. Although there has been then some further pushback of people saying, well, no, we didn't agree that, only the senior execs did, so it's still against our artistic integrity. Do you know what it reminds me of? Did you ever play a game called LA Noire, which was a Rockstar game, where they kind of really took people's real faces and plopped them onto computer models, and it just looked uncanny. It was just very uncanny, and that's what it reminds me of, is something quite uncanny that doesn't feel like it's in place in the rest of the world. And that, I don't think, is a great thing for games. Also, the temporal reliability of that work is up for grabs at the moment. Everything that they showed had movement, but it didn't have a lot of movement. And is that person whose face you've changed going to look the same from one scene to the next, from one lighting environment to the next, all these different things? And I guess it's an early stage piece of technology of neural rendering, but it has a lot of open questions to it. But I think it's interesting to see how AI is impacting games. And one of the other arguments with it was that it will mean developers will do less and less and less and less. When the 50 series of graphics cards came out, they had multi-frame generation. And the pushback against that was people saying, well, developers will have to do less optimization now because the AI will just generate the frames. The argument with this is, well, they'll just have like a box on someone's head and AI will just generate what the person looks like. So there's no artistic integrity and everybody will look the same and it's all AI slop. So that I understand those arguments. We'll just see how it plays out and see how this reaction comes. What I would say as a final point is Jensen's argument against it, which is gamers are just wrong, is not
I saw
really
that.
is not really helpful to anybody. You know, just saying, well, no, you're wrong, I'm right. As much as I like to do that with you, I don't think that's a particularly helpful response, and will garner much support.
If I was a billionaire, I'd be doing that all the time. Like,
yeah, that's true.
You know, it's like in Blackadder, no matter what the argument is, Queenie goes, who's Queen?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
even the other person's definitely right. Who's Queen? You are, Your Majesty.
Yeah.
Okay. I would do that if I was Jensen Huang. I think he's absolutely right to do it, and we're honoured to have him do it. I think.
yeah.
The other point, as a tool set though, I think is quite exciting because. And we've talked about this a lot. There has been next to no progress console on console for quite some time. It just doesn't feel like there's anything new in the gaming industry, at least in the way I play. I know you have a more exotic. I'm going to keep the exotic phrase, given that one of our comments to our videos implied that you're a furry. Duncan's exotic tastes in gaming aside.
Man, you're not doing any. You're not helping me out here.
For people like me, it just doesn't feel like there's been a tremendous amount of progress. So there was like a glimmer at the end of the tunnel that there might be some really cool stuff on the horizon, which I look forward to. But I get it. I understand why.
Graphics-wise,
I could be playing
not
a game.
gameplay-wise.
Well, but I think you could do some more exotic forms of gaming. You know, if a developer is spending less time on artistic rendering and more on really, really, really complex open world environments, I'm all for that. Yeah, that sounds good. You know, because a studio has a certain amount they can invest in or each of these buckets, and if one of those buckets is now made immeasurably cheaper, then they can spend even more money elsewhere. Is the hope? I'm Jevons paradoxing it, Duncan.
Right, okay. Yeah, the en vogue misused term du jour.
I've misused it there too.
Yeah,
because intentionally, because everyone does it. If in doubt, say Jevons paradox, and people are just like,
"Oh, well done, productivity,
yeah, well done.
productivity."
Yeah, great.
I think it's we'll wait and see what happens. It's quite exciting. I don't think it looks quite as bad as everybody made out, but it did. Have you ever heard the term yassify? It made me laugh.
No, go on.
Yassification is basically what it's done. It's where you take somebody's face and put like an AI filter on it that makes them look gorgeous, right? And there's a famous picture of like Friends, you know, the group of people who are in the sitcom Friends, and they've yassified them, and they all look like kind of like all chiseled and made up and like modern beauty, like modern beauty standards and all that kind of stuff. And what this does is it kind of yassifies your game characters.
Oh, nice.
Where it takes what, like the Resident Evil one is the best. They've got this kind of fairly plain looking character, and then the AI version has kind of got big puffy lips and makeup and kind of dark eyeshadow, and it just looks a bit absurd.
Whenever I put those filters on my pictures, Duncan, it just goes, nothing we can do here, buddy.
All right, you're as good looking as you're going to get.
That's how I'm taking it. Yeah, no improvement possible. One final news story, Duncan, because I think you'll enjoy this one. What are your thoughts on the ratepayer protection pledge that all of the big tech giants have signed in the White House? I think this week, maybe the week before, saying, all right, we get it, for God's sake. Yeah, we're using up all the energy and it's not fair on ratepayers. So we'll build our own energy stuff and we'll pay high prices and we'll be good guys from this point onwards.
Believe it when I see it.
Well, that's the consensus, in fact, because it's voluntary and it's not really enforceable. And it reminds me of, do you remember, I can't remember if it was before the pandemic or during the pandemic, when stakeholder capitalism was kind of announced with that big open letter in the Financial Times signed by like all of the great and good. Like, oh, you know, times have changed. We're going to be good guys from now on. We care about the environment and our workers and our communities. And then it became good sport from that day onwards to mention the companies that had then done appalling things, like one after the other.
It's the same with greenwashing, and it's just the same thing over and over again. It's the same with DE and I, right? Like they all signed pledges to do X, Y, Z with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and as soon as the political environment meant that it wasn't conducive or profitable to do that, just ditched. So
Immediately.
Well,
in some
yeah.
cases, in minutes.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I think it's in the Simpsons episode where Homer is wearing a corset and he looks kind of gentlemanly. He's wearing a suit, and then the second who he's trying to interview with leaves the room, his stomach bulges out and all the buttons pop out. It's exactly what it is with DI, where everyone suddenly was like looking properly, and then the mood changed. They're just like, "Oh, great, we can go back to being sociopaths."
Talking of Jim Carrey, masks off, right? So it's just. I like the idea, and we talked about it with the energy infrastructure and data centers popping up and being horrible places to live around, and the people who live near them actually ending up paying for the energy that they use. We talked about it on a previous podcast, but I believe it when I see it. I'll remain hopeful.
I asked Gemini. So much like Bernie Sanders with Claude, me and Gemini sat down, and I asked it a couple of questions about this, but specifically, who's subsidizing it? Because the US is indirectly, a US consumer is indirectly subsidizing data centers, but particularly the development, the data centers involved in training, because local data centers will handle the rest. And it gave me this really diplomatic response that I thought was very well described. It was like, oh, sure, the American ratepayer is funding it right now, but they'll get all of the benefits because all of the tax base will be in the US. So the Treasury will have it, and and the billionaires will be spending money in US shops. So they'll
trickle down
the ratepayer
again.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like that. It was a little bit more nuanced than that, but it's basically the same thing. It was like, yeah, sure, they're subsidizing it right now, but eventually they'll get all of that. They'll reap the rewards more so than any other country. So I think that's just worth pondering on before you're like, why has my energy bill got through the roof? In 40, 50 years' time.
Yeah. You might be able to. No, I'm not even going to get involved in those discussions. But yeah, I don't believe that will be the case. Do you know what we should do though? Next, maybe in a future episode, we will add in the way that Bernie had an interview with Claude, that you've just had a question with Gemini. Let's see if we can. I'll create a bot that can join us on the podcast, and we can talk to it, ask it questions.
In an ideal world, it will just give me compliments because my self-esteem isn't.
Well, maybe
great.
I'll bake that into what it says.
Oh, Ollie, you're so clever. I know.
Yeah. Are you long or short on this? I'm just long on Ollie. That's all I care about.
Do you know, if it could say that'd do me the world of good, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, you could do that yourself, mate, but we'll see.
I do. It doesn't have the same effect. Was it affirmations?
Yeah. I am good enough.
Yeah. By my low standards, I am good enough. I'm good enough. We should say most of the stories today have been generated by our tech tracker. Mm-hmm. So do go onto our website, shortfuseresearch.com, and see the tech tracker, but also take a look at the Carrey System, a high-stakes analysis tool with cinematic clarity, where we take Jim Carrey's body of work, his oeuvre of work, and we wedge some acquisitions up against it. Some of them are good. Most of them not so. Right. Otherwise it would work. And just because I didn't mention at the start, the Carrey System is the complete acquisition, research, and reference evaluation yardstick.
I like it.
Why was really hard.
Yeah.
Why was so hard to come up with.
Yeah.
One of the initial versions was just yes! ! Yes.
We give up. Yeah, go and have a look at that, and then more acquisitions. We will use the Carrey System to evaluate.
Yeah, so everyone knows where everyone is.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will be back soon with another episode. See you later.
Cheerio.
That's good.